hot seat for UFC.
The problem is that Biden, I'm sorry, but he's too feeble to be the explainer-in-chief.
And anybody of conscience knows that this conviction of Donald Trump and all these prosecutions of him are political. And they're doing the exact thing they claimed that Donald Trump was going to do. He was going to weaponize the judicial system and go after his political enemy. It's exactly what they're doing. And everybody sees it, except for Robert De Niro.
I can't say it enough. I said it many times. I would vote for his head in a jar of blue liquid over Donald Trump. But that doesn't mean that I'm not, first of all, I think it's a moot point at this point.
Okay.
He's gonna fucking lose.
Who, Biden?
Yes.
No, you're wrong.
So you see Trump once again get cheered at a UFC event. You then see Jimmy Dore, a prominent lefty. I wouldn't say really prominent lefty. I would say just prominent lefty here on the platform. He used to work at TYT, has had his own little controversies, all that type of stuff there. And of course, then you see Bill Maher at the very end. Well, you guys obviously saw the thumbnail and you saw Bill Maher's face. And obviously, we're going to be talking about Bill Maher and why it is that Bill Maher once again is coping with the fact that, Democrats may have, let's just say that they may have kicked themselves in the balls.
I certainly did. I loudly said I thought he would beat Ruth Bader Biden if he continued to run, but he is continuing to run. But here's what I read in Politico. A pervasive sense of fear has settled in at the highest levels of the Democratic Party over President Joe Biden's re-election prospects, even among office holders and strategists who had previously expressed confidence. The debate is June 27th. We never had one before the convention. If Joe really shits the bed, would that be a good opportunity to make the switch then?
Yeah. But before we talk about all this, and before we talk about David Axelrod, who's actually the voice for the person who, let's just say, Joe Biden was the vice president to, the real voice for them. I'll explain that in a little bit. I also want to tell you guys that there's also going to be a video out tomorrow on controlling the narrative and why it is that the Democratic Party, or at least the mainstream media, at least the narrative that they are throwing out there, is not exactly piercing. And I mean that not just in the sense that people can obviously feel what's actually going on in the country, but also why it is that so many people have, let's just say, abandoned the mainstream media altogether. We'll be talking about that more in the follow-up video to this one right here. And also, to go on top of that, these videos are going to be coming out a little bit later on the day, so you're probably not going to see a video come out like at 12 or 1 o'clock like they normally do on Monday. But of course, there's going to be 2 videos coming out on this particular topic. And there's actually going to be 2 videos coming out on Tuesday that we're going to be going back to 1 a day. But with that out of the way, let's go ahead and get into this. So, David Axelrod, Barack Obama's former campaign manager, took a stop to the Bill Maher show, Real Time with Bill Maher, and obviously such topics got kicked around. Topics like, say, why is it that the media narrative on the economy being so great, why is that not getting through to people? And also at the exact same time, very smugly telling people that they're better off than what they really and truly are. Also, 2012 came up, and not being able to pierce through the veil of the American mind, meaning that obviously feelings over facts doesn't exactly work as far as something to run on. But of course, now they're trying to run on facts versus feelings. And obviously that's not working too. And of course, it also led to that question. Can we replace Biden? Well, I've done a lot of videos on this topic, and I've told you guys at this moment in time, they probably would not be able to replace him. One of the biggest reasons why they would not be able to replace him is because obviously it's kind of cutting it a little bit too late. Some people have theorized that there's a real reason for the June debate. And of course, you've also got little things like this here.
The American people have really spoken up. And Casey, they've spoken with their wallets and their pocketbooks, even in a time where our economy is in such bad shape, thanks to horrific policies by Joe Biden. The American people came out, and in 48 hours after Donald Trump's verdict was read, our campaign and the RNC raised $70 million in digital fundraising. This is small dollar donations. And I think the amazing statistic to take out of that is that 30% of that money came in from people who had never once donated to Donald Trump. People are very upset about what they saw happen this week to someone should never have had.
Which might make you think that replacing Biden would not be, how do I say, it's not like it would actually do any good. And also one more thing to go on top of this. If you replace him, you're now admitting that the administration was a failure. You could come out here and you could say that obviously it's health related. duh, the guy can't even put two sentences together. So obviously people know that the guy's not there. But of course, his replacement, or the person that, quite frankly, would have to get the nod, his vice president, is absolutely horrible. These people are obviously screwed, so who's the next best option? Well, Gavin Newsom, I guess. We'll talk about Gavin Newsom in this video here, because Gavin Newsom is Bill Maher's choice. We'll talk about him soon. And of course, the other person is Michelle Obama, but this person is getting hundreds of millions of dollars a year. I highly doubt she's going to be leaving Martha's Vineyard to run the country, even though obviously she would not be really running the country. And of course, that right there is kind of their ace in the hole for 2028, because quite frankly, she's kind of their last option. We'll be covering that in this video here as well. But let's look at this first little segment, because obviously Bill, reading a Washington Post article, thinks you, the viewer, you, the person at home, the consumer, the person who's working, is obviously dumb.
The Washington Post says nearly everything Americans believe about the economy is wrong. So interesting. 55% think the economy is shrinking or is in a recession. Could not be more the reverse. Half think unemployment is at a 50-year high. It's 4%. Roughly half think the stock markets are down. They're at all-time highs. I mean, you're a strategist. What do you do when you can't get information? And this is my point about clickbait. You can't get information into people's heads. How can Joe Biden, who's done well with the economy pretty much, how could he run on, are you better 4 years ago than you were now than you were 4 years ago? Right. If people don't think they are, and the truth is they are.
I think it was Newt Gingrich said a long time ago in an interview with Ben Shapiro, he said that Joe Biden was the feelings over facts president. Now, in 2020, they would let you know that they won the election based off of feelings over facts. I mean, Biden did say we choose truth over facts, even though obviously that's kind of dumb. But then again, though, given the fact that liberals love to use the term your truth, my truth, her truth, his truth, whatever truth. Yeah, there's only one thing, and of course it's the truth, and of course the truth is normally the facts. But the fact of the matter is this right here. These people are obviously throwing out facts that, quite frankly, don't add up. Like, for example, they're telling you that the economy is great, yet everybody that's getting a job is either A, getting that job in hospitality, which doesn't exactly pay anything, especially given the inflation, or it's a part-time job, or it's a government job, not that many of them. And once again, we're kind of stuck in the same exact pattern that we were in 2012. The problem is that there's a lot of other differences to go on top of 2012, which of course is going to be coming up right now.
We were faced with something of this in 2012. We had come through this horrible financial crisis. The country was recovering. Unemployment was going down. But we understood that we couldn't claim more than people were willing to tolerate. And the fact is, you've got to link up with people where they live. Everything you said is true. U.S. is, and everything Biden has said is true. U.S. is doing better than other countries, for sure, in recovering from the pandemic. We had a soft landing. Everybody said we were going to have a recession. That didn't happen. There's a lot to be proud of there. But the big but is cost of living, inflation. Yes, inflation's coming down, but stuff is 20% more costly than it was before the recession. And that's how people are experiencing the economy, through the prism of costs at the grocery store, their rents, mortgages.
And the problem is that Biden, I'm sorry, but he's too feeble to be the explainer in chief, to get out there. And, you know, that's why we need somebody a little more vibrant.
Now, I'll be showing you guys the other half of that little segment here in a second, but I want to go ahead and say this right now. It ain't 2012. If anything, this election right here reminds me of 2012, but it also reminds me of 1968. And in a lot of ways, it also reminds me of 2016. A very odd amalgamation of three separate elections. And two of those elections, Republicans obviously won, or the Republican nominee won. Let me go ahead and explain to you the number one difference between 2012 and 2024. In 2012, when Mitt Romney was Republican nominee, he was a very, very weak candidate. As a matter of fact, his governorship in Massachusetts, he actually installed something similar to Obamacare. Obamacare, by the way, was the thing that Obama tried to run on to say that was his champion piece of legislation, but that champion piece of legislation was not exactly popular amongst the voting masses. It still doesn't have the popularity people think that it does, and obviously Republicans ran on repealing it. It never actually happened, and of course Trump was actually blocked for the most part from doing that, mostly through a Republican Congress that wasn't willing to work with him. And we'll also never forget John McCain and the thumbs down, how it was that he obviously chose to protect. I know it kind of came up like a thumbs side, but still, the point is this right here. Back in 2012, Republicans had a very, very weak candidate, and that weak candidate did not have the full base. So a lot of people love to tell you that all Republicans were in line with voting for Mitt Romney. Yeah, all registered Republicans, but independent conservatives were not. You see, you win elections with turnout. You don't win elections with polls. You don't win elections with percentages. You win with actual turnout. Romney had actually pissed off the Tea Party base, and a lot of the Tea Party base did not think that he was any daggone different than the actual administration that was in office. The same people who came out and voted in 2010 to get Democrats out, they said, screw this right here. We're not going to show up and we're not going to vote. We're just not going to give this guy our vote because he's pretty daggone weak. There's also the infamous 47% comment where Mitt Romney said that 47% of Obama's voters were basically people who were on food stamps and government subsidies, and they weren't trying to get a job. He said 47% of Obama's voters, not 47% of the American people, which, by the way, the Obama administration and the mainstream media both kind of spun. We'll be bringing that up in the follow-up video because we'll be talking about the media in the second one. And, of course, when that actually happened, when that occurred, the Romney campaign was not exactly good at doubling down the message and actually getting it out there. It ended up leading to a mess where the guy was apologizing for his comments when in reality what he should have done was actually double down. That right there is one of the main reasons why it was that 2012 was such a disaster for Republicans, at least for the Republican nominee. But something else, too, obviously needs to be discussed. And that, of course, is while the price of gas was high, it was right around $2.80 a gallon, whereas now the national average is what I'm showing you now. And, of course, it's a little bit higher than that, and it's probably going to get a little bit higher later on this year. They're trying to milk it as much as they can to get it as low as possible. But the problem is this right here. When Obama was in office in 2012, he could talk about gas and people not really care as much because the price of gas actually went up under George W. Bush. I know somebody who's probably going to be my political opposite is going to come in here probably before I even said that and say that you're blaming Obama for gas prices. No. I'm blaming Obama for gas prices staying up the way they were. The price of gas actually shot up at the very end of the Bush administration. It was actually going up higher and higher and higher. I remember coming back home from both deployments from Iraq, my first one in 2005, my second one in 2006, and noticing that the price of gas was obviously a little bit higher at Camp Lejeune. The point is this right here. We're kind of facing a situation that's a little bit similar to that one, except it's actually way, way worse. The problems have been amplified by 10, and also to go on top of that, when Obama was in office, we weren't actively actually in war except in Afghanistan. Now we've got an administration that has gotten us to a conflict with Ukraine, has gotten us to a conflict with Ukraine and Russia. He just told the Ukrainians that they can now use American weapons on Russia. That's obviously not going to go very well. And then the net go on top of that, now you've got this situation between Israel and Gaza, the Israelis and the Palestinians. And also now you've got China saber rattling, and of course they're saber rattling against Taiwan after a certain Taiwanese election. I think I said something about that in a previous video that you might want to pay attention to that. So when you hear David Axelrod blabber his mouth off and Bill O'Reilly blabber back about what you're about to see now, just know right now that at the end of the day, it's probably just more performative than anything else because, quite frankly, the current administration, these people don't really have anything.
For which history will be kind to him, that's not the question. The question is whether at this age he should have run. But he did run. And right now, he is the nominee of the Democratic Party. This is not 1968 where the convention's going to decide. We change the rules. Voters nominate a candidate. They've nominated Joe Biden, and he's not going anywhere. And there's no delegation of elders. I mean, how do you find elders anyway? But there's no generation of elders who are going to go to the White House and tell him that he can't run. He is going to run. And one of the reasons they wanted an early debate, I'm sure, is to focus people on this is the choice. It's Trump and Biden. I mean, you can take the easy way out and say, well, I'm not going to vote for either of them. But one of those guys is going to be president of the United States. And people ought to focus on that and give up on the sort of fantasy of that there's going to be another candidate.
Once again, mostly bluster. Once again, mostly bullcrap. Nobody believes that Biden has done anything good at all. As a matter of fact, the vast majority of Biden's voters aren't even pro-Biden. They were just anti-Trump. And a lot of people have obviously opened their eyes to obviously what the hell is going on now. Hence, part of the reason why it was I chose to bring a far-left radical like Jimmy Dorian at the very, very beginning to, well, let's play some more of this.
So that's Trump's response. First of all, he hauls in the biggest one-day haul-in small dollar donation, $34.8 million. You got, I would guess millions of people have decided to vote for Trump because of this. That's just my guess. So what's going to happen now is I would not be surprised if they completely rigged the election. I would not be surprised. In 2004, Keith Olbermann and the Democrats all thought that they rigged the vote counts. In 2016, Hillary Clinton and all the Democrats and all the media thought that Russia had rigged the election and that Donald Trump was an illegitimate president. So, and before 2020, they were all screaming about how the election machines are all too vulnerable to being hacked.
Now, there's about 55 more seconds from that little bit that I can play, which I will play here in a second. But the thing is this right here. Dore is somebody who, by the way, is very, very much a lefty, a lot like Glenn Greenwald and so many others. Of course, people will sit here and tell you that he's the honest lefty. That's actually not true, because if you actually go into his past, you're going to find problems too. It just so happens to be that obviously I'm subscribed to Jimmy's channel and I just happen to like him as a person. I just don't agree with him politically on anything. Yeah, if I lose some respect from people out there, I'm just sorry, it's the way that it is. Not everything I say is going to be something that, quite frankly, is going to make you happy. That right there is not my job. My job is to try to tell you the truth, be absolutely real with you, and of course provide you a white pill or a silver lining, because obviously there is going to be one here at the end of this video. The point is this right here. You're not running against Mitt Romney. You're not running against an extremely weak candidate who had a very much a glass jaw. The media is not going to work as well against typical Republican candidates as it normally does. Trump is somebody who, quite frankly, drives the media absolutely insane. You obviously see this in the B-roll footage with Trump at UFC events. The crowd actually likes this. By the way, it's a very, very deep blue New Jersey. The fact is this right here. This right here is not the same ball game, and Bill Maher even knows this. And, of course, when you try to convict this guy, which, of course, they did, and what was obviously a rigged court case, this type of stuff is, in fact, going to backfire. And, of course, there's always going to be somebody on your side of the aisle who kind of sees this, and he's obviously going to step up and say something. Bill knows that the party is screwed. He knows that the Biden administration is screwed, or else he would not keep bringing up the whole point about replacing Biden. At this moment in time, you're not going to replace him, okay? You're just not going to be able to pull that off. I got people who come in my comment section. It's okay, you guys can still come over and please tell me what you think, but they keep saying the same thing. They're going to pull something up. They're going to pull this. No, everything that they were going to do is actually what they're doing now, trying to lock up their political opposition. Crap like that. They're hitting with a bunch of court cases to bog him down. But obviously it's blown up in their face. And don't get me wrong, they will try other things too. But at some point in time, you got to know that after a while, it's just not going to be effective. You don't have the C91 to help you out with that. And even if you did and you chose to lock down the country, it would still backfire and blow up in your face, because guess what? The people would just blame you, the current administration, for what the hell is going on. And therefore, you would not have the boots on the ground that you had back in 2020 to help be able to pull off what you did. If anything, it would actually blow up in your face, and it would be quite hilarious to see. And I think Bill Maher knows this.
I read in Politico, a pervasive sense of fear has settled in at the highest levels of the Democratic Party over President Joe Biden's reelection prospects, even among office holders and strategists who had previously expressed confidence. The debate is June 27th. We never had one before the convention. If Joe really shits the bed, would that be a good opportunity to make the switch then?
Yeah. Listen, that is a fantasy that I hear a lot. Yes, I like Joe Biden, and I worked with him, and I was grateful to work with him, and I think he's done a lot of very, very fine things.
David Axelrod is the voice of Obama. And he is telling you, this is it. Now, we could talk about this in a later video, explaining what the overall end game is going to be here. But number one, history will not be good to Biden, because obviously Biden has shown himself to be the worst president we've had, at least since Jimmy Carter. Probably worse than Jimmy Carter, probably worse than James Buchanan. But still at the same time, though, this whole notion of replacing him. Who are you going to replace him with? You try to replace him with Gavin Newsom. That ain't going to work. California, you have a homeless crisis for a reason. By the way, that right there will be coming up in Tuesday's video, because I got to talk about a guy who, quite frankly, had an extremely bad take, in which he ran his mouth about this for 8 minutes. So make sure you guys stick around for that one. I'm just going to go ahead and tell you right now, his initials are CT. I'll let you guys kind of figure that out. Just know he's a real turd. You've got that there. You've also got a state in which California, which, by the way, people have been seeing deteriorate every year since about 2000, Even when Schwarzenegger was governor, it was getting crappy. You've also got not only the homeless crisis, but the price of living is through the roof. Nobody wants to get into California. You got crap all over the street, and also you've got a governor who absolutely hates anything related to fuel and is green energy on steroids. It's obviously backfiring on them. By the way, something else too about Gavin Newsom is that his policies are not exactly going to go over well in the Rust Belt of the United States. Just saying, the guy's also anti-oil, he's also anti-gun, and he's not going to be able to get the votes that you would need to get over. Fact of the matter is, Gavin Newsom would lose in a massive landslide. I think I've explained that in previous videos. I may have to do another video on that. I want to see what happens. I don't think you're going to be able to replace him, and also to go on top of that, even if you did replace Biden, you would have to replace him probably with a woman of color. But Michelle Obama getting hundreds of millions of dollars a year, sitting on Martha's Vineyard saying she's not going to run, seems more to me with the current crop of Democratic Party leadership and candidates, they don't really have anybody that they can throw out there at this moment in time. And if you did choose to replace Biden, you would be admitting failure. So no, Bill Maher is not going to get his dream. He's got to cope with the fact that the policies he's voted for, he's got to live in. And the people who, quite frankly, blew all the smoke up his ass about Trump losing and saying that Trump was going to go to jail and all that type of stuff has obviously not worked out. Fact of the matter is the mainstream media lied to these people, and a lot of their voters are becoming to get quite blackpilled. And you know what? That's fine with me. Let them be blackpilled. This tweet right here came from Lefty Streamer, Destiny. By the way, he'll be coming up in a video a little bit later on this week because some very, very funny things happened this past weekend in Philadelphia that I'm going to be covering on Tuesday. When you've got people like this saying that they know that it is, then that right there is pretty much a guarantee that a good portion of that base of support is not going to show up and actually vote. By the way, that tweet was not a troll. People asked if it was a troll, and of course, to come to find out it was not. He was actually being serious, which surprised me. Fact of the matter is that the left is completely and totally blackpilled, and the voice of the left is really and truly, or the voice of the Democratic Party base, is Bill Maher. If Bill Maher is beginning to get blackpilled about the prospect, that's a good thing for the right side of history. That's a good thing for people on the right. Look, the biggest reason why these people were able to pull off what they did in 2020 is because they still have the boots on the ground to be able to pull that off. They don't have that option this time around. But you guys tell me what you think. Please tell me what you guys think of this. Please hit the like button. Please subscribe. Please share the video. Please sign up in the comment section. We will be discussing this a little bit more in video number 2. I want to talk about how the media narrative or how the media cannot control the narrative anymore because obviously the narrative does not match the reality, but we'll talk more about that in the follow-up video, this right here. Like I said, please tell me what you think. Please hit the like button. Please subscribe. Please share the video. Please sign off in the comments, and I'll see you guys later.